So I'm just sitting here writing on my book about toxic relationships, and I was thinking about during Corona that more and more people are now using online dating apps than ever before in human history. And yet we are so oblivious to the actual dangers that could potentially be out there, and the fact that 10% of the population in the US, that means about 35 million, are actually highly toxic and dangerous people to date because they have one of the four personality disorders, which are borderline personality disorder, narcissism, antisocial, which is also called sociopath or psychopath, or the histrionic personality disorder. And all of these are inherently really, really toxic in relationships. And one of the big dangers is this myth that chemistry is what we should be looking for, that chemistry is that magical thing that tells us whether we are compatible. And this is dangerous for a few different reasons. One of them is the fact that chemistry doesn't tell us anything whether we're compatible with somebody long term. It's simply us recognizing certain traits that we either wish we had ourselves or that creates familiarity. That means that we start idolizing this person and projecting onto them this fantasy of who we want them to be. And we all do this to smaller or bigger extent. But we don't actually see the person for who they are. We have a positive bias and see their positive traits and ignore the maybe more negative traits. And this is why we really get blinded and can't make good decisions. That's number one. But number two that I really want to talk about today, the biggest danger is this myth of chemistry, is that the people who are able to create the most intense sense of chemistry and connection really fast are these four highly toxic personality disorders that I just mentioned. And they use specific strategies to do this. So if you find yourself in a new relationship or dating somebody and you feel that, wow, it's almost too good to be true, then you should really slow down and start looking for some of these warning signs that I'm going to explain to you now. And there's about 14 of them that I've identified, and I'll just mention a few of them in today's video to not make it too long. So the first one is what we call idolization, and that's the first stage that all these toxic relationships go through, which is idolization, devaluing, and discard. And what happens in idolization is that they will start idolizing you, and they will start using something called love bombing, which is where it's kind of like getting a spotlight on you. You never had this kind of attention before in your life. It's like somebody finally seeing how great and amazing you are. And they recognize all your good traits, and they will compliment you enormously. They will start telling you really quickly how much they love you, how nobody has never understood them like you, how special you are. They never had a connection like this before. So that's the first one, and it'll be more intense than anything you ever experienced before, but it makes you feel great, makes you feel fantastic, especially if you have a tendency to have a bit of codependence or more anxiously attached, and this will just feed right into those wounds and suck you right in. The next one I want to look at is what's called mirroring, and it's kind of like a chameleon adapting to the colors. And for example, for borderline personality disorders, because they often lack a sense of self, of identity. And what they do is they understand, will ask you a lot of questions to get to know you really quickly, and then they will use that to mold a personality that fits exactly what you want, your likes, your desires, your goals, and you think you found your dream partner, your soulmate, your perfect match because they fit so well, but they're actually just reflecting back to you exactly what they learn that you want. It's not who they really are. And this is again why it's so important to slow down, because over time it will come out and you will see their toxic characteristics. But if you just follow this short-term sense of chemistry, then this is very, very easy for them to fake. And it's a survival strategy they learned from they were very small, so they're so good at it. And you are not necessarily going to spot it, except that it feels extremely and intensely good, and almost too good. So we looked at mirroring, we looked at love bombing and the idolization, and there's also the tendency to go into using victim stories that usually again appeal a lot to highly empathetic people who have a low sense of boundaries. So there's a lot of emotional dumping that to you makes you feel a lot of empathy and get sucked in because you lack the boundaries to say this is actually too much to share at this stage. So they will often share a lot of trauma stories, dramatic stories. They will always be the victims in these stories, and it will come very early on, much more intense than you're used to. And it's good to apply the 90-10 rule here and say, for 90% of people you ever met and know, would they act this way? And if the answer consistently is no to the love bombing, to the mirroring, to the sense of victim stories and drama in their life that they suddenly, push onto you very, very quickly, then it's a big warning sign, and you really should start slowing down and observe more for these warning signs and red flags. And also I'll give you more warning flags in another video. So this was just to get you started and get you a little bit of awareness of why you shouldn't blindly follow this idea of chemistry, because it could very easily get you hooked to very toxic people. And similar, I also spoken to quite a few women who said, oh, I really want the most confident man in the room, and I get that. And yet we often don't think about the fact that the most confident man in a room is often going to be the psychopath. And if you have, like I said, 1% to 2% of the population fall into this category. So that means if you have 100 matches on an app, it's likely that 1 to 2%, 1 or 2 of those is a psychopath, and 10 of those is a highly toxic, has a highly toxic personality disorder. So it's really worth, like I said, slowing down and start noticing and not rushing. And guess who will always be the most confident guy in the room, or woman for that matter? It's a psychopath. And why? It's because they simply have a different neurologically wiring in their brain. So while us, you could say normal, or the majority of people, 98 to 99%, we have a wiring that means that we feel anxiety and fear, while the psychopaths simply don't have that connection in their brain, meaning that things that would normally cause us discomfort or make us fearful and make us feel anxious just doesn't to them. So they can easily go around in a room and socialize and be really, really charming, because they feel no sense of anxiety, and they are so good at making you feel at ease because they feel so at ease. And while that might sound great, it's also that very same ability that makes them able to hurt other people without remorse and not care about you later when their true colors come out. So again, maybe we need to start reevaluating what it is we're looking for, and also know how to look a bit more careful at these traits. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you soon.